Hello, Global Theater. My name is Jerry Fielka. Today's January 9, 2022. We want to thank Rob Grant for hosting us on his amazing station called I'm Probably Wrong About Everything. And boy, you should check him out. It is a great podcast. Thank you, Rob. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here with Daniel Montes de Oca. Daniel, please pronounce your name the correct way.
Hey everyone, I'm Daniel Montes.
And
Yeah,
can I call you Dan or you want Daniel?
I'm good with anything.
Well, what do your parents call you?
My parents call me Daniel.
What
So
does Helen call you?
yeah, she mostly calls me Daniel too.
Danielle. Okay, I'll call you Danielle. That's better. So Daniel, um, see, I changed the accent right off the bat. Okay, where are you calling from?
Right now, I'm over at home in Mexico City, calling over from my childhood bedroom.
How cool.
Yeah.
We'll start right off. What's the best thing for a human being?
Ooh, the best thing for a human being. Perhaps a secure, secure parenting or caretaking through early childhood be one of the most
Dude,
important things for a human being, I guess.
dude, that is heavy. You know what the cliche is? If your parents split before you're up to 17, you're fucked. And I hate
Mhm.
to tell people that because everybody's parents split, almost.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
are your parents still together?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
See,
Yeah,
that was
having.
pretty good. Secure parenting to early childhood. So would you agree that even up to 17 when you're leaving the house? I
I
mean,
mean,
why
I guess like the more the better, but
right, but
essentially,
what are you calling early childhood? What's the number, the age, year
I mean,
about?
let's see, maybe towards some time, like especially the years you don't remember, the way till you're 3, 4, maybe even 5. I would say like
Yeah,
that
0
agree.
to 5. That's pretty good. What's your favorite form of information? How it comes into you?
I think for me, I was pretty much into the YouTube generation, and I just like pretty much like all into the educational videos and all these channels that I don't know. I look at it more than for entertainment. It's for informational purposes to me. Looking at
Good.
informational videos in a way, yeah.
Yeah, why do you think humans collect or gather information?
Hmm. I mean, there's no one purpose, but in the among the several of them, I mean, part of it is it provides an advantage to have information about the environment, to have information about each other. In a survival environment, being aware of those things can enable to make decisions in a way that's more mindful of what's around. But of course, like going way beyond survival and into the development of different societies, of course, formation is not only about surviving anymore. It's about identity also.
Dude, you're a highly advanced thinker. That's what we're all about is
Oh
being
my.
mindful of your environment and identity. Most everybody I interview says, "Oh, survival." Well, that's evident. We know it's survival. So
Yeah,
that
yeah.
perfect lead in. And it's not that they're wrong. There's no right or wrong answers to these questions, but the next question is this need or want to collect information more innate or more invented? And so, just so you know what I'm talking about, I know it's both and it depends and all that, but I'm asking you for your hunch or your guess, the more thing. And you don't have to commit to it, But I'm
Hmm.
just saying, your sort of hunch, is it more innate or more invented?
Hmm. If by invented we mean learned, then I would go more towards learned.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that word. Learned is, do you learn to eat? So, would you agree with me that eating is innate in humans? We need and want to eat.
I think we are born with the capacity of grabbing food and
Yeah.
ingesting it. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, but here's the funny thing. Have you ever heard of breatharians?
Nope.
They live by breathing. It's like, yeah, right. That's pseudoscience. But I just saw this YouTube video where this culture stops eating for 3 months every year. Once a year, they don't eat. They just drink
Ooh.
apricot juice, and they all live till they're 110. And it's like, whoa. So that's sort of like not eating. But in general, most humans eat. But
Mhm.
it's not. But do we learn how to eat? When our parents give us food, do we just start chomping on it and they swallow it? Or do they go,
Mm.
okay, chew your food, honey, suck my, breast and drink the milk? Wait, they
I
did.
don't know.
That's innate when you say.
Yeah, yeah, that's pretty much
Right.
pre-coded into us.
But pre-coded, so the word learned, and I love when people challenge or ask me about the verbs that I use in these questions,
Mhm.
because I would say learned is a little more leaning towards invented, because you can't learn something that's not, well, you can learn innate stuff, but it's like eventually your parents go, "Don't slobber your food," and blah, blah. That's learned techniques of eating.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, I'm yapping too much. So let's go on to the next one. Do thoughts create emotions?
It goes both ways.
Yeah.
Yes, thoughts can create emotions, and emotions also create their own thoughts.
Do you think thinking is more innate or more invented?
Ooh, first, let's go towards thinking. What is thinking? And oh my, is that a stumper?
See, you win. You answered a question. You answered a question with a question.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
what is thinking? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. What
what do we mean by thinking? Like, do we mean the conscious process of thinking or the pre-conscious process of thinking? Because the brain is doing lots of background stuff while we're not aware of it. And at some point, it's like magic. We come up with a solution to a problem or a thought, but it's been processed before. It's not that it arises out of nowhere.
right, but you
So-
said like magic. Did I hear that word like
oh,
magic?
magic. Yeah,
Wait, did you say the word magic?
I think I did.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
it's a metaphor.
I think your mic's hitting your zipper, by the way, dude.
Ooh.
You have a
Oh,
mic right there?
no, I think the mic's
Okay,
in the
okay.
computer.
Oh, it's in the
That's
computer.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Because we're getting a little bouncy noise of something. But
Okay,
that was
okay.
really good. Challenging that wording is good. Yeah, because what is thinking? That's like, you ever study the neuroscientists? They go, you don't, yeah, it's all, everything's determined before you
Mhm.
think, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so Danielle, fill in the blank. I don't know what I think until I,
This is gonna sound like until I think it.
that's fine.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
funny.
because yeah, the McLuhan says, "I don't know what I think until I say it." Joan Didion said, "I don't know what I think until I write it." You know,
Yeah,
can humans think without language?
that's oof. It's possible other species can, but humans, I don't know, maybe. But depends what we think about as language. I mean, you didn't teach a human language. Well, they might still develop language if they have someone to speak to. But if they had no one to speak to in this hypothetical case of having someone never having any contact with anyone, how would they think?
No, have you ever heard of the
Yeah,
wild child? Or these wild child was raised by wolves, and
yeah, yeah.
there's a kid who was found in his basement and he never saw any movie, and then they showed him Star Wars. He had no reference to what he was seeing on the screen. It was just like, wow, that was interesting. So Chomsky says a language is not just words. It's culture, tradition,
Mhm.
unification of community, a whole history that creates what a community is. What do you do when language doesn't work, when it breaks
Mm.
down?
I mean, you try another one, but in the end, it's acknowledging that there's a core property of communication that it won't be transparent.
What do you mean by that?
There's no way in which what's coming out of my mind means the same to you as it means to me.
Right.
So no way, it doesn't work all the time. At least if we look at it from this lens of transparency.
You mean language doesn't work all the time, but we think that's like T.S. Eliot, the poet, says, when I'm talking to you, I got to use words, you know.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
and
yeah.
we know words don't work all the time, but we think because we use words all the time, they do work. Lily Tomlin says reality is just a collective hunch. So we're just like going, yeah, these words you're sort of getting, but I mean you're talking to someone in language isn't working. What do you do when language breaks down? What do you do?
Hmm. Guess I mean it's totally circumstantial, but perhaps if I'm close enough with the person, like being a musician, there's that. I don't know if I dare call it language, but it is a form of communication, and it often can say things that the spoken language is, I don't know, a bit lacking in.
But I didn't understand that. You mean you would, if language breaks down, you use music to communicate? Is that what?
Sometimes, like
Yeah,
in very specific occasions, like not like I'm in the street and the person can't understand me, then I start singing to them. No, but not in that sense, but
right.
more more in more personal settings, more.
I got you.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you think humans are more feeling beings or more thinking beings?
Mm, what they do is because of how they feel.
Yeah.
What, yeah, like because reason reason can come up to many different conclusions of things, but in the end it's not until someone feels like, aha, this is it, when that starts meaning something.
Aha is a great thing. An
Hmm.
aha aha moment is what James Joyce called an epiphany. So Alan Turing in 1950 asked these two questions. Is thinking a function of the soul?
It's a loaded question. I mean, the soul, the soul of thing, or is it a placeholder
It's a
for
great
something we
question.
don't understand yet? We're
Is it a thing or a placeholder? Ha. Okay, let's go on. That's fine. Can machines think?
not yet.
Do you more pursue happiness or more pursue meaning?
Mm. I think at this moment in life, it's happiness through meaning, but I don't know.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Does does the brain more detect consciousness or create it? Like, is consciousness there bubbling away and we're detecting it, or are we actually creating it?
Oh my. You should know a little more in neuroscience, but not even neuroscientists know this stuff. So,
Yeah, it's just
yeah,
your guess,
yeah,
which is
that's
yeah.
guessing. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Hmm. I mean, I wouldn't like go towards either answer. I mean, it would make assumptions that I know something about the world that I don't.
That's
So,
fine.
yeah,
And again, this is another stupid neuroscientist question, but if you want to, what's faster, speed of light or speed of thought?
mm, speed of light. Yeah, thought is not exactly. I mean, the speed of light refers to linear motion from one point to another, and thought is branched out. So it has to go to many different places before it comes out.
It's like fractals, like whoosh. Yeah.
Yeah.
The poet Audre Lorde said, "You can't dismantle the master's house using the master's tools." Yvonne Rainer responded to her and said, "You can if you expose the tools." What new tool do you suggest?
Mm. Hmm. Radical determinism.
Whoa. Is that two words you put together or did someone else come up with it?
I mean, I'm sure someone else has thought about it, but what I guess what I mean by this is the acknowledgement that we are all the way we are because of reasons that have, or rather than reasons, because of material facts about reality that we don't have control over.
Yeah, okay,
And
but yeah, no, that was good. Where did you get the word determinism from
what?
previous? Where did you study it? Because I know where I first heard it. Because it's there's so many ways of this. They call it this determinism, that determinism. Where did you, or one of the ways you first heard about it? What was the adjective before determinism?
I think it was in a philosophy class, maybe, but
But what was the
not.
adjective before? Do you remember?
I think rather than an adjective, it was more of a comparison between the ideas of determinism and free will.
In free will, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I first heard of it through studying McLuhan, and they called him technological determinist. So
Hmm.
it's like, they say the Civil War was caused by the telegraph and the World War II was caused by the radio. People go, no, Hitler used the radio. It didn't cause World War II. And that's McLuhan's not a determinist, but he gets thrown in there. Like Wikipedia calls him a light determinist, a light technological determinist. But there's biological determinism. One of our questions will get to that. That was really good. Radical determinism. Now, what new toy do you suggest? That's a good new tool. What new
A
toy do you?
toy. Okay, something
Yeah,
to have fun with.
yeah.
Hmm. I think programming is a fun new toy.
Yeah,
Relatively new, but
but does programming mean also coding? Is that
Yeah,
what you would say?
that's what I'm trying to
Coding. You call it
implement.
IT, information technology?
Yeah, in a way, the growing availability of these technologies that allow for the consumer technology we have in front of us, like there are ever growing frameworks and accessibility for people to use them as
Yeah.
something creative rather than simply a consumer product in a way.
Yeah. McLuhan learned from Ezra Pound, the poet, that artists are the antenna of the race. They're broadcasting the hidden psychic effects of our inventions so that we can learn to cope with what we don't like about them. So we don't know how Facebook runs the world or how it's changed humans. Everybody's just embraced it. Even if they hate Facebook or love it, you live in a Facebook world. Sorry, face it. You don't have a choice.
Mhm.
So there's hidden psychic effects of how Facebook has changed our lives, changed our behavior. But we don't really see them. But there's artists who are broadcasting these hidden psychic effects. They might not even know they're broadcasting it.
Mhm.
McLuhan's main question is, and I ask you, why do humans ignore the hidden psychic effects of our inventions, even though the artists are broadcasting these hidden psychic effects?
Mm, I mean, we could go towards complacency, but then that begs the question of why be complacent about the reality that's around it. It's like phrasing it in a way.
Dude, you're a good you should interview yourself because you did a follow-up question. Rob, pay attention to that. He followed up his own answer. Well, the answer is complacency, but then that begs to where does complacency come from? That was brilliant, dude.
Uh,
What I really appreciate is you're taking the time to think and reflect mindfully. You don't have there's no rush here. You don't, because I asked you it, the think it's like ping pong. People think they have to answer right away. Like
yeah.
George Carlin's daughter, you did a little. She would laugh, take a deep breath, and then think. The whole thing's a big joke. So, do artists have a moral obligation?
Mm. Do people in general have a moral obligation?
Yeah, there you're answering a
Yeah.
question with a question. I get that one a lot. But I'm just saying, yeah, let's assume and agree everybody has a moral obligation. But do artists in their practice have a moral obligation?
Maybe instead of obligation, we could look at it as responsibility, which is
Yeah.
different.
What's the difference?
Let's say obligation is, in a way, set in stone or predetermined, whereas responsibility is an acknowledgement of agency, in which you acknowledge, well, this is what the impact that what I do could have in the world. And then it is a choice rather than an obligation to exert or not that impact in the world.
Dude, that's heavy. But if Stanley Kubrick makes Clockwork Orange, in the UK authorities say you have to pull this film because it's causing kids to beat up winos. He pulls it from UK screens only for 30 years. Now, does Kubrick pull the film because he actually believes his film is causing kids to beat up winos? Or is he pulling it because a publicity stunt? He says, I'll get all the publicity I can because the whole world isn't uh, uh, pulling the film from the screens. The rest of the world is showing his film. And it's a deep question. You don't have to answer it, but I love your acknowledging agency. There's a lot of artists that make shit that really fucks people up.
Hmm.
But are they doing something wrong? Have you ever seen a Pasolini film or some of the, I mean, just take Saw or any of this shit that hits
Hmm.
the screen. Is that sick puppies or what? But is it people? You can't stop human creativity, but you can put the moral obligation is, yeah, if the ratings uh tell you no, your musical composition is X rated, you know, then they're restricting it. So it's a heavy question. Do we.
Yeah.
Are you more afraid of old ideas or more afraid of new ideas?
Mhm. I think in terms of afraid, I would phrase it in terms of feeling rather than of whether they are dangerous or not. Because one thing is to be afraid of the feeling a new idea, a contradictory idea might have when one encounters it. Like it happens many times that I'm reading through something and then I find something I that contradicts my worldview, and it angers me in a way. It has uh, a painful even effect on my being. So maybe in that way I'm afraid of new ideas. But to think that I should be afraid of them because of the threat they might pose outside of this physiological effect of encountering them and assimilating them, I don't know. I think it's not the newness or the oldness of the ideas what
Yeah.
makes them worrisome, for
Yeah,
me at least.
that was good. But you go to buy some tennis shoes and they put on the label, these tennis shoes are really cool, but they were made by child labor in some other country. So don't read the fine print, just buy them because they're cool shoes.
Mhm.
You're not going to know that all the time. That was great. You put the word fear into danger in that, because I didn't say dangerous. You
Yeah, yeah.
injected the word danger there. So that was interesting. Thank you so much. Can you conjure up your earliest memory ever or one of them?
Hmm. I have a memory of a dream. I was maybe around 2 years old, even maybe even smaller. Was this dream in which I was going to this school, was like a kindergarten school, and in the playground they had a helicopter. And I went into the helicopter and like I don't remember if it flew or not, but I just remember this going inside and crawling into this helicopter in the middle of a playground. I think that's
How
among
did
the
you
early.
know about helicopters at age 2?
No,
But wait, movies, TV, or your parents took you to an airport or a book?
I'm not sure. I mean,
Ah,
possibly TV. Who
because
knows?
was your parents allowing you to watch TV at 2?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is memory more a curse or more a blessing?
Mm, I'll say a blessing. The end, it's not memory; it's the peace you make with it.
The peace you make with it. That's pretty dang cool, dude. Amazing. Daniel, who are your early role model? Who name an early role model?
Or
Someone who had an impact on you. It's two part within your immediate family and then outside your immediate family. Just briefly, and what was that impact specific?
okay. So Within my immediate family, I would say my grandma.
What'd
When
you get from her?
hmm, I think part of the discipline and love of music I I got from her. She was she played the guitar, and she was a pretty avid uh uh singer of traditional songs and Mexican popular music. And she wasn't herself like a performing musician or anything, but in a way, during my early days, she like helped me set up shows in front of the family. And no, I just in a way, I think of all the people in my family, she was the most understanding of what I did.
That's cool. What outside your immediate family?
Outside
Someone
my
who
immediate thinking of a teacher and I had in fifth grade. Her name is Raquel Aspani. And from her, I think this aspect of confidence in who I was and what I did. She was pretty supportive of me.
super. Did your parents raise you a particular religion?
Yes, in Catholic faith.
You still practicing or did you check out?
No, not right
What
now.
age did you check out?
Mm, maybe around 17-ish, I think. I'm not sure. 18, maybe.
Do you pray?
Not anymore.
If God exists, what do you want God to say to you after you die?
Ooh. Guess it'd be cool to have an answer to the mysteries of what's inside the mind.
Ah,
Would
you're
be
good. Everybody says, "You did a good job." Most people say that. Or they say, "Welcome." But it's like, yeah, who killed Kennedy? Like, you got this ability to have a conversation with God. It was like, yeah, what's this all about here?
mhm.
Okay, do evil people exist or does evil use people as a vehicle?
Mm, that's a loaded question again. It's like thinking of evil as something that's out there in the world rather than something we perceive due to our human human faculties of categorizing the world. Mm, I mean, to a certain extent, there is something of what we might call evil in all of us, and do we all make choices that could fall into this evilness. But the, I really do think that a lot of environmental factors are what's behind this thing of evil, not something necessarily innate in most cases, but rather relating to how you're raised and how the world around us treats us.
Yeah. Rob's got a question to cut in. Go ahead, Rob.
Hey, how's it going? All right. So my question, sociobiologists, they look at how our behavior changes, how it evolves over time. So there's a piece of artwork at the library that I take my daughter to. And in this piece of abstract art, it's all these different pillars, these steel beams. So let's say there's 6 different steel beams and they're converging into each other, and then they're kind of shaping into one thing that is yet to be fully realized, but you can see they're starting to come together. So is human history, is it a story of convergent evolution or divergent social evolution? So is it coming together, converging, or is it fracturing apart?
I think we have strands. Like, yes, there are forces that pull societies together, but there are also forces that drift into their own past or into a projection of their own past. Well, in the end, their own past is a projection of their own past because that's what we have.
So what are you experiencing in your own world? What do you see? Do you see a convergence or a divergence?
I think in the bubble of the world I am in, it's more of a convergence, but in the end, this bubble is divergent from other bubbles of the world.
Right. So there's all different bubbles converging, but there's not one big bubble converging into itself of, say, human consciousness.
I mean, as hopeful as that would sound, it it's a bit of a tough sell, I would say.
Yes. It's utopianistic.
You're dreaming, dude. No, that was beautiful, Rob. Let's
All right.
follow up because this is good. That was really good. This is about how you advise someone to deal with an enemy. So, you said something that a lot of people say. They go, everybody's capable of evil. And I think that's a beautiful thing because it's how you deal with these people who we deem as evil, which is sometimes called your enemy. So, how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? And I'll set up with a few modern thinkers' thoughts. Alan Watts says, if you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them. Coppola stole from the mob and the samurais, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. JFK said, forgive your enemy, but don't forget their name. And Fellini says, I need an enemy. So, a lot of quotes, a lot of thoughts, but basically the question is, how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? But first, how would you react to Alan Watts? If you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them.
Hmm. Well, it's fear motivated. It's really don't acknowledge your enemy for fear of empowering them.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if I fully agree. I mean, in terms of acknowledging, does it mean by acknowledging their humanity? Does that make them more powerful?
Dude,
Or
that's a great
yeah,
question because that's what when Fog of War came out by Errol Morris, I felt he was acknowledging or humanizing a war criminal, McNamara. But my wife's father said humanizing anyone is a good thing. So, if you humanize what people go, oh, you humanize. So Ram Dass says, I'm having a real hard time loving George Bush or fill in the blank. Anybody who you want to sort of declare, yikes, like,
yeah.
yeah, what else can you do but love them? And people go, nope, I don't love them. I hate them. Sorry. But how do you basically advise someone to deal with an enemy? What would you say to them?
Mm, I guess personally, I would try to keep things on good terms.
Yeah.
But were this not possible, which is a big if, it's making lots of assumptions about the possibility and willingness of someone else's behavior to change. No, if it's possible to stay away, then stay away in a way.
Yeah.
I
James
guess,
Joyce. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I guess like that's most natural to me in that I tend to avoid things.
Yeah,
I don't feel specifically comfortable, but that's like just my personal psychology.
that's fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, if the situation ain't working out, avoiding it is like half the, it's all dependent on different parameters and all that. But James Joyce was running a cinema in Dublin over 100 years ago. He basically checked out. He said, "This is stupid. Why should I go inside a building and see a movie of a tree when I can go outside and see a real tree?" Years later, Faulkner said, "Sometimes the best fiction is more true than journalism. Why do we have to recreate things in order to get them? Why do we have to go to a theatrical play of people acting out life? Why don't we just live life?"
There's an art of framing things, an art of framing reality. It's what we see in these fictions. It's not reality. And the acknowledgement that it is not reality, that it has its own conventions and formulas, that enhances the emotional appeal of reality, we could even say, and under some instances, in a way that just looking at it without the appropriate mindset to have that emotional connection to it cannot.
Danielle, you explain this well in your article online, LA Voyager. You talked about what first attracted you to pursuing music, but maybe you can go a little deeper. I basically got from it is you had a little toy keyboard. What age are you, like 2 or 3?
Yeah, who knows?
Somewhere in
What's
those
up?
early years.
Yeah.
And you could hit a button and the demo would be playing.
Mhm.
And then eventually you learned how to play the demo yourself. You self-taught yourself from hearing the demo. How many times? Like 100 times? 1 time? 10 times?
No.
What's your guess? Like 1, 10, 50, or 100? How many?
Sometime around 30, I think, would be
30. Okay, so 30.
reasonable.
And then you started playing it, and your parents thought you kept hitting the demo button. Is that the
Mhm.
correct story? So
Yeah.
you sort of self-taught yourself from a mechanical, which is basically a player piano. You know Conlon Nancaro?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like Conlon Nancaro taught you how to play piano.
Oh well, that'd be a completely different story.
Is he Mexican?
No, I think he was born in the States and then he went to the Spanish Civil War and couldn't return to the States, so he set up in Mexico and stayed there the rest of his life.
Yeah. We did a Skype interview before they called Skype. You know Trimkin, the guy who did Conlon Nancaro's music? Anyways, it's a long story. It's beautiful what you did. So what then? You're seeing your grandmother. She's playing. You're listening to music what on vinyl or radio or CDs or whatever. Then where did you go? I want to do that. What was the kickover point where you said that's what I want to do? I can
Ooh.
Well, I can do that. You proved at 2 or 3 you could do it. But I'm saying, like, where did you go, I want to do this? What was the kickover point about? The tipping point, we call
I think rather than a specific moment of decision, at least in these early years, was just the fact of being dragged around into lessons and like I don't know, finding enjoyment in the practice of music and of the instrument, and this, I guess, proving to myself that I could do it, but also finding enjoyment in the making of music, which is, as I come back to questioning why I do this, in the end, it's still the enjoyment of the fact of strumming a string or playing a key. That's what draws me to it, mainly. Towards when I decided that I wanted to do this as a career, that's a more specific moment. I think I was maybe around 11, 12 years old. I mean, I was big into music. I like remember listening on this little iPod uh, to lots of classical music, and there was this point, this time when my father took me to a concert in this big concert hall in Mexico City, Bellas Artes, and they played, classical Beethoven's Ninth. So it's pretty standard, the crowd pleaser, the big work. And I remember that going out of that place, as I walked down the stairs of that building, I was like, hey, that made me feel this sense of euphoria, this joy that I want other people to feel.
Right. But
So,
what
yeah.
had given you euphoric feelings previous? Anything else?
Let's see. Maybe not to that extent. I mean,
That
of
was
course, yeah.
that was a tipping point.
Yeah.
So a screenwriter told me that was good. I appreciate now. But if I was at a cocktail party and I says, "Hey, what do you play? What instrument do you usually say?"
I usually say piano because it's the
You-
one I've been playing most of the time.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was sad. You got hijacked out of drums, though, man.
You know,
Why do you
that's
think? Because most parents would say, "I don't want my kid playing drums; they're too noisy." Is that why?
I think that was the core reason why.
Yeah.
So I'm at a point in life right now when I'm like, hey, I want to study the drums.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Mm,
Yeah. Well,
whole world there.
Helen teach you how to play the Black Page on drums, man. That's like the hardest drum piece ever written, or one of them. Okay, so a
Yeah.
screenwriting teacher told me great film or great art is when you can clearly see the intention of the maker. Stanley Kubrick says, great film, great art, great music is when you can clearly not see the intention of the maker. What role does intention play in your creative process?
Ooh. I think there was a breaking point this year, specifically, because previously it played a lot of it. Was very intentional music, and I would get very irked, very irritated when things didn't go my way, especially with performances and all of this unpredictability, or even like finishing a piece and then realizing that that wasn't what I wanted to do. I think lately intention has become something I'm not specifically excited about. More excited about, well, what can I do if I don't put the intention in the way of my making?
Yeah.
So,
But
yeah, that's
dude,
where I'm at.
yeah, that was beautiful because you actually answered the question before I asked it. You said you're walking down those steps and you go, "Wow, that was euphoric," and I want to give euphoria to other people. So that was sort of like your original intention. But it's
Yeah.
like now, when you're going to get out of studying at USC and go, your parents are going to go, "Dude, how are you going to pay your rent?"
Oh yeah, that's
Yeah,
totally.
yeah, no, I'm gonna be a teacher. Yeah, no. But I mean, there are people who write contemporary orchestral music and make a living, you
Hmm.
know. Good luck.
Yeah, I don't know if I
So,
want to be one of those, but well,
yeah, yeah.
who knows?
But it's beautiful you're at that stage because then in 10 years we'll do this interview again and we'll see how your answers have
Uh,
changed.
yeah,
Will it? But Duchamp says there's no art without an audience. How much are you thinking of your audience when you write your composition?
Ultimately, a lot more, I think. In the beginning, it's very easy to fall into the pitfall of, oh, I'm gonna write something that only I want and that's gonna please me only. And I mean, it's a stage. It's not necessary. Some people linger in that stage for lots of time, but no, I'm realizing that it's not only my self enjoyment which what matters in music, but rather how I get to other people. And the thing is that there's a lot of mystery in between what the artist makes and how the audience will receive it. I mean, yeah, so there are some clues that what can put in there and have an audience member relate it to something else. Like, oh, you were making a reference to this, or you were trying to make this provokes a certain emotion or whatnot. But in the end, it's pretty unpredictable how
Yeah.
audiences respond to everything. And I guess it's from this acknowledgement that there is very little I can do to control how someone will respond to what I make, that I ought to, within the authenticity, see if people connect to that or not.
Yeah, it's really good. Frank Zappa said, I just write music for myself. If other people like it, great. It's like, yeah, that was romanticizing it. He knew if he hit certain notes and said certain words and played rock and roll, he could write his contemporary, orchestral music. And so he knew you live in a consumer society, you can't
Mhm.
escape that. You're going, oh, I'm gonna just go like, unless you're Charles Ives and go, well, I'm gonna make all my money being an insurance salesman, then I can really write Cecil
Yeah.
Taylor outness, I mean, all the power to Charles Ives. But who's better, Steve Reich or Philip Glass?
I like, I wouldn't say better. I would just say I like Steve Reich more.
Yeah, just don't become a Steve Reich clone, please.
Yeah. I mean, he's got his cool stuff, but
Yeah.
one of them is enough, you know?
Yeah. So let's stay on music for a few seconds. My friend has an interesting formula. Well, let's start with this. What's the function of music?
Function of music. Hmm. I would lean to say social bonding.
Social bonding. Wow, that is a good answer.
Yeah.
I like that answer a lot. So Aaron Copeland says the four elements or ingredients of music are melody, harmony, rhythm, and tone color. In layperson's terms, what is tone color?
Hmm. I would explain it as what allows you to distinguish precisely what sound source originates a sound.
Right. Sound source. That is good. Dude, you didn't use the word everybody uses, timbre. They all go, it's timbre. I says, that's not common. People
Yeah, it's
don't know.
like to explain it. Yeah.
Yeah, timbre. Yeah. But that's you're saying to acknowledge sound source is similar to timbre.
Yeah.
But you
Yes.
you in one in your interview or no, in your one of your videos or your LA Voyager uh printed interview, you said pitch or timbre. You brought up the word pitch. Where does pitch is pitch in melody and harmony, basically, but or is it in rhythm? Is pitch in all four of those?
Mm,
What's the
it
dominant?
varies by tradition. There are some traditions where pitch is also in the rhythm.
Yeah. Is
Yeah.
pitch in but pitch is also in tone color, right? Is pitch in tone color?
Yet. Okay. So in physical terms, they are not. It's
It's
pretty
not.
much impossible to separate pitch and tone color.
I see. You can't separate them. Yeah. Yeah, another person said timbre is the amount of overtones in a note.
I mean, in a way, not only the amount, but also the change in the overtones, the
What is
relative amplitude of them.
Well, what is overtone?
The overtone. So the main definition of the overtone is essentially you have an oscillating body that's moving back and forth at a certain frequency. We will call that frequency the fundamental frequency. If this body not only moves in one way, in at one frequency, but it also has multiple frequencies laid on top of this one frequency. There was this teacher in linguistics did a brilliant explanation of how this works, which is essentially, let's say you have this body that is made of like two particles and it moves in one frequency. But then it can also move in a different frequency.
Right.
Twice the time. And then you can combine those two together and do something like this. One of these frequencies is slower and wider, which is the first one we demonstrated, but then the second frequency, it's smaller in the amount it moves, and it's faster. So essentially with physical bodies, you get a whole bunch of those smaller and faster frequencies. Those are the overtones.
That's beautiful. It's like
Yeah.
Zappa saying music is like, well, when Frank heard, he really understood what music was air molecule sculptures. And he was in church and the choir was singing and he could see that their breath was affecting how the flames in the candles moved.
Mm.
So, air molecules, you can sculpt them sort of like what you just did with your hands. You go, also
Yeah.
sounds like Georgie Moroder. So, another friend of mine has the 3 T's to music: technique, theory, and taste. Technique is like your hand learning how to do it. Theory is like your head figuring out which key it's in. But taste is like your heart. How does one acquire taste? You brought up the word discipline. You can acquire technique and theory through discipline, learning, study. How does one acquire taste?
Discipline is part of acquiring taste. Like the music you study reflects, well, depending on the relationship you have with your teacher, of course, can either make you love that music and really understand it, or despise it and not ever want to do it again. And it's also how the music we ingest outside of practice, or the music we're surrounded with. In the end, we learn the conventions of this music, and whenever we are presented with making musical choices, these conventions will influence what we think is of good taste, I would
But
say.
the convention and good are the 2 words I'm asking. How do you acquire what is good, and how do you acquire what is a convention?
I would say that what most people say is good is simply a convention. I would put pretty much an equivalence there. Though when people,
Right.
yeah, like, I mean, like, for instance, when people try to study, let's say, orchestration, and they're presented with examples of good orchestration or bad orchestration, good or bad is to a great extent a reflection of the music that already exists.
Right. So you're saying, yeah, that's what determines. Yeah, most people say how you acquire taste is by listening, but you're saying by what they're telling us or giving us to listen to
Hmm.
is what you acquire taste from, because you don't grow up listening to Stockhausen and Charles Ives and Schoenberg and the real radical guys and
Hmm.
gal. You don't listen to the radical people, but then when you hear it, you might acquire a taste for it, you
Yeah.
know. Like Varese was what Zappa just gravitated towards. And most people can't listen to Edgar Perez.
Yeah,
They're
yeah,
like,
yeah.
what the heck? So another thing McLuhan said, I'd love to hear your reaction. Song is slowed down speech. The reason cultures have different musical taste is ultimately connected to language difference. Any comment?
That's a new one. I hadn't heard that exact quote. I had heard about the relationship between music and the language of the creators. Like there's there's this research into how composers of different nationalities, depending on the language they speak, gravitate towards certain rhythms that reflect how the speech is. And I mean, be interesting to see like to what extent it is discernible in for instance in the song traditions of different cultures, whether the language they speak will influence how the melodies are created. Though it might also be interesting, like the cross pollination of cultures living right beside another, speaking different languages. The music also cross pollinates between them.
Yeah, it's good because T.S. Eliot said that poetry can communicate before it's understood. So when we heard the Tuva Throat Singers, it's like that music will put you into another world. It'll transform you just like immediately. It's amazing. Then we found out all they're singing about is their boots, their horses, and snow. But it didn't matter to us. We were hearing this. Have you ever heard Tuba Throat Singers?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying. Okay, tell me an instrumental that makes you laugh.
Instrumental?
Yeah, any instrumental music that
Okay.
makes you laugh.
Makes me laugh. There's the joke quartet, the Haydn joke quartet, the ending where he puts in I don't know how many like fake endings, and it's just like trying to to throw people off. It's like, okay, it's over. Nah, just kidding. Yeah.
That's beautiful. So I can look that up. Haydn's Joke Quartet, it's called.
Yeah, it's the joke quartet. That's the nickname, I guess. Yeah.
Okay. So McLuhan says everything we invent extends some humanness. So clothing extends our skin, knife and fork extends our teeth, shutter of a projector or camera is an extension of our eyelid, philosophy's extension of consciousness, whatever, humanness. What does the piano extend for you? What humanness?
What's humanness? Ooh. I guess it extends my vocal cords and all my vocal cords can do.
Yeah. What
like
was
regarding emotion, the expression of emotion particularly. Not
Yeah.
so much the conveying of meaning, but
the emotion? Yeah.
the motive capability of the vocal cords.
Yeah, that was good. What's the motive of the cave artist? Not with anthropologists or Herzog's documentary, just your guess. What was the motive of the cave artist?
Hmm.
And that could include cave musicians. We don't have any documentation of cave music, but we have the walls to look at. We don't have documentation of cave dance. So, and when I say cave artists, I mean, dance, music,
Yeah.
wall drawings.
I think maybe connecting with the sacred.
Yeah. What's sacred mean? What's another word for sacred?
Ooh. It's another word for sacred. I think I would connect it with what feels truthful, what feels out of the ordinary. And in that out of the ordinariness holds an extra value of truth that ordinary reality might not.
That's pretty deep, dude, but I want to go with the word truth. Louis Buñuel said, I'm for anyone who seeks the truth, but I part ways when they claim they found it. Any comment?
Yeah, we don't know anything. But hey, at least we can call out people who claim they do.
What's more important, conviction or compromise?
Compromise as in compromise between two parties? Or
Well, you
what
put
do you
in
mean by compromise?
you put in the context you want.
Okay, yeah, just thinking because I'm trying to translate, but in Spanish it means something else.
You mean the word compromise in Spanish means what?
It means commitment, compromiso, commitment.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not sure if in English it has the same connotation. I don't think.
Well, commitment is conviction, so that's funny. It's like,
yeah.
What's the difference between commitment and conviction? That's almost what I'm asking of you.
Yeah. Yeah, let's say conviction.
Good. We got Rob. Rob wanted to interject a question here. It might go back a theme. Go ahead, Rob.
So I was listening to your music, postmodern meander music.
Oh yeah.
And I was watching the video, and you explain it, and you're talking about. Did you write that music?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, okay, yeah, because I was a little bit confused because it says that you edited it.
Oh yeah. I also edited the video, but yeah.
Okay, gotcha. So you wrote that music.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the questions that Jerry asks is something about what non-human things have invented your music. Like, we think about industrial music. Well, it sounds like a factory was inspired by that. Like the amount of synth. I can't speak. Anyways, what non-human elements would you say inspired your music? Like, I do a lot of beatboxing, inspired by what I hear around the world. What inspires your sound?
I think for that piece, a lot of it was with music playback technology and what it can do in difference to what human players before this technology were used to doing. Like, you can rewind, you can like loop a section around many times. That's not something that humans are like precisely before this technology were precisely keen on doing. Like right now, you can just click a button and have something loop on forever. Yeah. Had you asked about that like before this technology, and some people did have the courage, or I guess the humor to ask for those things. But yeah, I think it's recording technology.
It's perfect too, because if you learn to play between 2 and 4 on a little play keyboard that had a playback button, you weren't seeing your piano teacher play fingers on a keyboard. So that's perfect. That in the long run, what would you do is learn the technique through teachers with tactility, hands on instruments, but you still reverted back to playback technology. It was part of your environment. But it's Rob, it's a good question, because I'll just ask him now so you understand the question, what Rob was referring to. So a couple film people say, ignore yourself. There is no self-expression. In fact, Cecil Taylor, jazz pianist, says, I'm just a vehicle and this stuff just comes through me. So my question, which Rob was referring to, was, is art making, music making, not just for you, but your observations of it? Is it more self-expression or more you're a vehicle for whatever technology or culture is dominant? So what he specifically was referring to was like Ginger Baker, the great rock drummer. They said, "Where'd you get your sound from?" He says, "I was in London when they were bombing us." So it was like this, boom, 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 boom. And so that's what his rock drumming sound. And then Missy Elliott said she learned how to sing from car alarms. So there's nothing wrong with this, but it's like
Yeah.
what sort of shaped you and them was something, you know, some technology that's in the air or some culture
Mhm.
that's in the air. It's like Stravinsky. He didn't write the music. He just listened to the folk music and ripped it off. So that
Yeah.
was the culture. Now, but this is our question to you. Great that you brought this up, Rob, is that is it, of course, it's both, but is it more vehicle or more self-expression?
I mean, I would argue that what we call self-expression is to a great extent an expression of what's going around, what's going around in the world and in the immediate environment. I mean, thinking in this deterministic mindset, this deterministic framework of the world, I am who I am because of what's around me and because of my genes, which are also not something that I can control. But
I
in
missed that
this,
word.
yeah,
Because I'm my what? I missed the word.
uh, I am what I am because of what is around me, and and because of
Genes,
my
he was
genes.
saying
Oh,
genes.
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 Because of my genes. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no. Good, Rob. That was good. Because that's interesting. You started off being mindful of your environment. But the real hidden question here, Daniel, is art making, can art making or music making be egoless?
Hmm. Can have moments in which it feels like that. I would say, yeah. Whether it's, I mean, I guess like this question of the ego is pretty much related to how much the inner voice is interjecting, and and it seems that it's pretty much all of the time that we have the inner voice interjecting and saying things. But if we manage to appease it for a moment, I think that's what we call
What
ego.
does appease it mean? What do you mean by appease?
Oof. Well, if I had the answer, I'd be doing that all the time. But
You'd
yeah,
be
yeah,
bigger than Giorgio Moroder. Go ahead, Rob.
This is my last question, but so my daughter, she's 2 and she's acquiring language, and to her it sounds, and there's responses to the sounds that she uses, and she's starting to put them together and realizing that these sentences can form an emotive response. So, for example, yesterday she went to ballet. She's wearing a tutu, and it was torture. And she was like, "I want to go home." And both mom and I were like, "Oh my god!" Right? But then today we're playing, her and I, and mom's having a nap, and she looks at me. She says, "I want to go home." But it's like, sweetie, you are home. So she doesn't know what she's saying. She just knows that if she says something, a certain sound, it has an emotional response. So
Mhm.
the question is, what's more important, the words we use or how we use them? Or you could substitute words with the tools that we use, how we use them, and crossing that over to music. So what's more important, the tools we use or how we use those tools?
Really great, Rob. Yeah,
And
Yeah,
you just hit and run, man.
yeah, I'm still here, but I think it's just
No,
easier to see.
I
So
know that.
yeah,
No,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
great. No.
That's beautiful. Oh.
Well, it's like Daniel. It's also like you being told, "Don't do drums; they're too noisy. Do violin." Then you do violin all those years, and then you realize, well, wait, I can be more of a composer on a piano or whatever you switch. So
Mhm.
it's like it's a heavy question because, of course, it depends. But what is it? Could you compose on the violin? Probably
Right.
not as well. You
Yeah,
know,
makes you lean towards different things, towards different vocabularies, I would say.
yeah.
But hmm, yeah, to this question, is it the words or how you use them? Hmm, I think there's something that you can't get from like both of these categories hold something within themselves that cannot be found in the other one. So with the words, there are not necessarily precise signifiers because they vary slightly between different speakers. When I say house, people will think of different things for their house, but it's close enough that it's practical. However, with how you use them, it's like this eternal problem of texting that if you text something, you don't know if the other person's gonna interpret it as if you're mad or if you're just saying it in a matter of fact way. Like this emotional content of the message is something that can be varied and toyed with beyond the concepts or the words themselves.
So sorry, follow up to that because that was a brilliant answer. I mean, who determines the meaning of a piece of art? The creator or the audience? So with your music, who do you think determines the meaning? Like if say it was just postmodern meander music, and then you played it, right? Who do you think would determine them? Because there was a lot about COVID there and finding hope and inspiration in
Mhm.
the road forward, which I thought was beautiful. And then that kind of gave me a little bit of a context for this piece of art.
Yeah,
So yes,
totally.
who determines the meaning? Would you say, or the you're talking about with texting, right? Because I could
Yeah.
say, "Come here for dinner," and you could be like, "Oh man, Rob's pissed," or it's just like, "Show up." You know what I mean? Like we can interpret things differently. So who interprets things and ultimately the meaning?
I mean, yeah, the artist has a say definitely. Like they're like, hey, I made this. I can say what I think this should mean, but in the end, the power of the audience to reinterpret that and to put that into question and say, like, really, was that what you meant? Or are you not trying to conceal something else? And then that's like even ignoring the cases when there's a disconnect between the creator of the media and whoever receives it. If this is a disconnect of centuries of the location of time, uh, then I think a lot of the interpreting of the meaning falls on whoever receives it. And yeah, this whole intertextual framework of it's not really the author, it's rather how what the author may interact with the culture that's around it. So yeah, I would lean more towards
Yeah.
in the end it's the audience.
Yeah, it is, Daniel. That and there's no right or wrong answers, but
Yeah.
Rob, he got that one right. Because once you create your art, it's no longer yours.
Yeah, it's out there.
Stravinsky, Buñuel, they rioted at the symphony. They rioted, when they put out their art and it changed the world. So you can go, well, if you make art that makes people riot, you know, then it's just like punk rock. It's what McLuhan was sort of saying when he said the medium is the message. It's in mid career he changed it to the user is the content. So
Hmm.
it doesn't matter what you say, it's how the audience is going to use it. That's why when Daniel gets real big, some great music critic is going to say to him, "Well, I blah 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 from this and your your symphony, and Daniel go, thanks. I'm glad you had the sophistication to interpret it. Whereas most people were just go, I got my $80 at the concert at Disney Hall. I got my $80 worth.
So okay, I promise this is my last question. I always do this.
Don't worry.
But so there's this clip I have previously mentioned, and it's George Lucas, and he's done his cut of episode 1, which was abysmal. Its end product. Critically, it was just like, what the hell is this? Both from fans and from critics alike. And there's a clip of him watching his final edit. Like, he's at the pre-screen and he's doing this, like it's Frankenstein's monster, and it's going around killing everybody. So what do you do when the effort that you put forth creates the effect that you never intended? So you created something, you put so much effort into it, and now it's created an effect that terrorizes you.
That's when you jump up and down and go, I did something worthwhile. That's Louis Buñuel, Rob. It's like, if art fucks your shit up and makes you say, I can do that, then it's great art. But it's like, yeah, he has no control. But I mean, Daniel can answer it. But yeah, it's like, we're brainwashed to believe we want art to coddle you and make you feel good. And yeah, and it's like
so the fact that they rioted after the Rite of Spring, the Stravinsky piece in France, that was he just like, yeah, I did it?
No, he
shifted them up.
It doesn't matter how he feels. It's that in the history.
But does it matter to the artist? Like, if people are getting hurt because of something that you,
if Daniel gets, this is Jean Cocteau, another great French guy, telling us what's art for. He said, when Daniel puts out his first big symphony in Disney Hall, plays it, and then his critics, his parents, his girlfriend, and his teachers come up to him and say, that was great, but I would tweak this, or I would do that. Take all those criticisms and exploit them for the rest of your career. That's what Jean Cocteau said. So, I mean, I mean, I'm answering the questions you're asking, Rob, for Daniel, so I shouldn't be talking. But I think Daniel understands what I'm saying. He doesn't want to make art that is a failure, but it's how do you flip that? So we'll lead right into the question. Daniel, tell us a weakness you've turned into a strength. So this is like turning a breakdown into a breakthrough, a rejection, a redirection. Like Moshe Feldenkrais says, it's literally possible to take a weakness and make it into a strength. So if all your critics say, oh, you failed, then how do you flip that? You don't say, oh, I'm a failure, I'm going to go sell shoes now or something. You can flip it. So you've already lived long enough. Tell me one weakness that you've turned into a strength.
So this whole talk reminds me of this little incident that I had a couple of months ago in composition lessons. We were like presenting some pieces we had done, and, like some self-recorded stuff, and in the end, and when it was my turn to presented something I've been making with this kind of methodology, I would say, of having a lot of respect for whatever I'm making, trying not to dismiss anything as oh, that's not good enough, or that's amateurish, or that's like trying to be very respectful and very truthful to what I'm doing. And hey, if this is what I'm doing, then this is what I'm doing. And eventually, at some point, like I presented the piece, and like during the making, I made choices. Who knows for what reason, but I made choices. And eventually, like everyone unanimously was like, "Hey, you should have put the fader up in this track." Like, I wanted to hear more of that, and like think that prompted me to ask them, well, why do you say that? What is the motivation? They're like, oh, because I want to hear more of that. But then why do you want to hear more of that? Like, why are you not happy with the music the way it is? Like, what is it in you that impedes you from from enjoying what's going on here? And I
Yeah.
don't know. I think it's making me realize that the music I make, I mean, as long as I am having enjoyment in the process of making it, and that I can, you know, have fun with the people I'm making it, or have a sense of achievement, or something that makes it worthwhile for me. It, like, doesn't matter what comes out from it. It's like, okay, that's good. But
Yeah.
then the conversations that arise from this music, I think that can be very valuable. Sometimes
Oh,
even more valuable than the music
yeah.
itself.
That's really good because that's like you've turned that self-doubt. You talked about that a little. You turn that self-doubting into a strength. And that's like
Mhm.
that's well, the beauty of the beginning of this whole conversation was there was some of the longest silent parts I've ever had in my 40 years. And it's like here's a music composer and we're sitting here just waiting for his answer. And I always go, those silent parts are the greatest parts of the interview because we can both yap. I yap way too much. But when you have two people in the audience, whoever listens to this is waiting, that is the
Mhm.
essence. Silence is the loudest sound in the universe, as Thelonious Monk says. And the gap is where the action is. So that's beautiful that you could use their feedback to gain your or help your respect for your decision. It doesn't mean down the road you might go, oh, they kept saying that fader thing. It's going to sink in and it's going to be part of what you heard. But it's you don't have to, and you don't have to defend yourself. You're using it to ask them questions. Like why there it's the process of listening. That's half the music. The half of music is the recipient. It's not just the composer,
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah,
Can you go longer than 10
I'm
or
good.
15? You're good.
Hey,
Okay.
yeah.
So, you talked about this. T.S. Eliot said that poetry is outing your inner dialogue. What language is your inner dialogue in?
Mm, depends where I'm living. When I'm over here in Mexico City, it's Spanish most of the time, except when I'm like in all full online school, then it starts shifting to English sometimes. And when I'm in the state, it's
But
in
the
English.
hidden
So
question is what form is your inner consciousness in? See, the
mm,
word language
yeah,
doesn't
yeah,
imply spoken. Yeah.
yeah. What form? I mean, it is definitely spoken language.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah. More of a verbal thinker, I would say.
Is perception reality?
No. Hard no.
Hard no. Lewis Carroll said, I believe as many as 6 impossible things before breakfast. Have you believed in any impossible things lately?
Mm. Remember believing it was possible, like pretty. We were on a highway a couple days ago, and I was thinking about doing some about the noise that's going in underneath the car from like the tires in contact with the asphalt, and thinking like, oh, there should be a way to cancel that for everyone who's in the car only using the car speakers. Nope, turns out you need like very specific positioning of speakers just for one head. And then if the head moves to a different place, then you don't cancel the sound. On the contrary, you make it louder. So yeah, that was
That's a
a bit of an
good
impossible
creative mind.
thing.
Tell how many years you been composing music, would you say? About?
Hmm. I guess in a very disciplined manner, it might be somewhere around 5-6 years. I mean, I did
Okay.
start doing something
No,
things
in
before. Yeah,
5 years, in the 5 years you've been composing intentionally, tell me one element that stayed the same and one element that's changed.
Ooh, elements that stay the same. I catch myself going back to the same old melodies all the time. It's like
Wow.
I listen to the works. It's like, ooh, this came from somewhere, and I just like some people say, you write the same piece over and over your whole life, and
That's
I don't know, there might
yeah,
be
they
some
don't
reason
mean
there.
you, Daniel, they mean everybody. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Paul Simon called it one trick pony.
yeah.
There are a few guys that, yeah, if you listen to Zappa's 60 albums, you realize he didn't write the same thing, but there are motifs that do repeat, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, but it is
totally.
interesting how we can, that's called the auteur theory. How I could play you 5 classical composers right now and you could probably tell me them just by your knowledge or the movement. Okay,
Yeah,
that's the same.
the
What's
same.
changed in
What's
the project?
changed? I think the intent
Nice.
with which I have made this, because I think when I first started at this, I was pretty much removed from the community aspect of being a composer. I was just like in my bedroom or somewhere with a computer and just uh, inputting notes into a computer programming, and that was pretty much the gist of it. The end goal was like to have something for myself, and I think with my growth and with experiencing more and more, I've given way much more weight to the fact that this is an art form that is about communities of people,
Yeah.
both listening and also making it. It's not a one-man show. There's
Very
some,
good. What's the most significant difference between women and men, physical aside?
mm, um, I would say the way they are raised, depending on the society, but the way a woman or a man will be raised is quite different depending on where you live.
It's really good. I
Yeah.
watched the Rita Marino documentary last night. Have you seen that yet?
Mm-mm.
It's unbelievable for, Latin, Spanish, Mexican culture, whatever, she's engaged in Latin culture, but she's raised in Hollywood from like 13 and she's still going. And it's like that your answer really applied because it's like quite remarkable what she had to go through in view of it now. Like then it was the norm. But it's pretty creepy what women have to go through. It's like, Jesus.
Yeah.
So, there's a saying that goes, "You create what you resist," or Bob Goldthwait, the comedian, said, "You are what you hate."
Mhm.
James Joyce said, "It's a curious thing that your mind is super saturated with the religion in which you say you disbelieve." Louis Buñuel nailed it. He said, "Thank God I'm an atheist."
Mhm.
So, what's your take on this line? You create what you resist. I'm not saying you, Danielle. I'm saying
Mhm.
one creates what one resists. Any comment on that?
I mean, it is definitely accurate. Like I've observed in many people that having some sort of even a fixation on the things that they don't especially agree with as to why.
Yeah, again, you're doing a
Yeah.
great job of interviewing yourself. You're taking the question a step further. Why do they create what I didn't even ask you that. I just asked for any comment because it is. Why are we so attracted to what we hate and resist? And then we spend our whole life obsessed with it when it's just like, chill out, you know,
Yeah.
because there's something in the human. They want to know like the deeper. So, how do you find peace of mind?
Mm, lately, it's been inner dialogue, which is
Nice.
different from inner trash talk.
Inner
I
dialogue, is
guess.
that like meditating?
I guess it might be encompassed in some forms of meditation. For me, the way I understand it is, you know how there's this whole saying of "I contain multitudes,"
Yeah.
being, yeah, I in my own observation of myself, it seems that I do contain multitudes. Not so much in the sense of like the people who've been in my life, although those definitely
Right.
influence the way I am, but rather in that it's as if I contained multiple agencies within myself who can contradict each other. Some of them are fearful, some of them are angry, and not anger comes from fear sometimes, some of them are more resolute, some of them more doubtful. And in the end, it's trying to understand what each of these parts of me is looking for and be empathetic towards that. So,
Yeah, it evokes two
yeah.
things, Danielle. Alan Watts says, everybody's trying to figure out who they are. If you figure out who you are, you're fucked. If you try to define it, then you're fucked. And the great poem goes, roses are red, violets are blue. I'm schizophrenic and so am I.
That's nice.
If you were walking down the street today and you met yourself as a 12-year-old, what would you say to your 12-year-old self?
Mm, take things a little more lightly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Which way should toilet paper come off the roll? Over or under?
over.
Why?
Ah, for me, it's been the walls of the stall. Like sometimes they're this kind of, like coarse wall that's in the bathroom, and then if it's under, then you have to like scratch your hand against it. So
Ugh.
not a fan.
That's good. If a publisher was to release your autobiography off the top of your head, what would the title be?
I don't know, something along the lines of I don't know who I am.
Hey, that
Something
goes
like that.
without probably wrong about everything. They
Yeah.
want to scent the glue in the binding. What smell would it be?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
They want to scent the glue in the binding of your
Oh,
autobiography. What smell would it be?
smell. Mm, maybe the smell of wet earth after like after it rains. How the
Love it.
earth smells. Yeah.
If a statue was built in your honor, where would you want it displayed, and what would it be made of?
Oh, statue. Hmm. I don't know if I would want a statue of myself, so maybe something impermanent, like an ice sculpture or something, in place of hot
I
weather.
Ice sculpture?
Yeah, an
Or
ice sculpture.
yeah, ice sculpture, that's good. So we're almost
Yeah,
done, Daniel. It's been really fun. I appreciate your time. This has been
yeah.
enlightening for me. These are 5 quick Alan Watts questions, just off the top of your head in a couple words. Who started it all?
It was not a who.
Are we going to make it?
Yeah, where? I don't know.
Hey, perfectly anticipating the question number 3. Where do we put it?
Put it where it fits.
Who's cleaning it up?
Whoever made the mess, of course.
Is it serious?
No.
Wow, that was good. Okay, a couple more. Tell me something good you never had and you never want.
Hmm. Mhm. Cup of wine.
It's good you never had it and you never want it. That's good.
Yeah.
If if you were in a vat of vomit up to your neck and someone threw a bag of shit at your face, what would you do?
Sorry, say it again.
If you were in a vat of vomit up to your neck and someone threw a bag of shit at your face, what would you do?
So they're like, hey, why?
Why is a great question. Like, one of my favorite answers was the person said, "I'd never be in a situation like that." Thornton Wilder said, "Art is confession." You sort of touched on this earlier. It's amazing because, you know, the poet Auden said, "The mystery of art is that we don't know if it activates or pacifies us." And this is sort of similar. Thornton Wilder said, "Art is confession. Art is the secret told. But art is not only the desire to tell one secret, it's the desire to tell it and hide it at the same time." So you've laid your cards on the table for over 90 minutes. I'm not insinuating you haven't already answered this, but what's it really all about for you?
Mm. Uh, Still figuring out something.
Figuring out is a good thing.
Yeah.
Still figuring it out. Hey, dude, don't ever figure it out. Just keep trying. Okay.
Yeah.
So what's a cultural shift you see developing today that's had an impact on you?
I think the shift in the importance, or rather than importance, in the rigidity of gender roles and gender assumptions,
Yeah.
and trying to this whole decoupling what kinds of behaviors are acceptable depending on what sex you were born with,
Yeah.
so
Did you see this new documentary, Sisters with Transistors? It's about all the women who excelled in electronic music, avant-garde electronic
mm,
music. I mean, Wendy Carlos, it's pretty amazing. We don't think of that. And, it's
mhm.
great when these people make these docs and say, "Hey, there's more than what you've been taught for these many years of electronic avant-garde music. So last question, really been fun, Daniel. Thank you. Is what gives you the most optimism?
Perhaps the fact that we're so unpredictable.
Yeah. It's a really good answer. We're so unpredictable. Well, give a shout out to Helen for introducing us. Thanks. I encourage people to go to your website.
That was awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, wasn't that
Thank
Rob?
you.
Rob knew he took a peek at your some of your compositions on your website, and we look forward to all your new work. Keep us posted, dude.
Thank you so much.
All right, namaste, man.
It's been great.
Thank you so much.